Hey everybody, it's Dr.Sam Robbins, and today I'm going to talk about oats, about oatmeal, the problems with it, the benefits, the pros and cons, the best time to eat, and why most people eating it for breakfast isn't the best time. Also, what types is the best form of oats to eat if you're going to eat them, and what you should avoid. So let's get started. And I mention this because it comes from a question that I received, and basically here it goes. Hello, Dr. Sam. I wanted to know if you eat oats or oatmeal, and because I have a huge bowl every morning with bananas, and I wanted to know if it's good or bad. I heard it's full of vitamins and fiber and good for lowering cholesterol and blood sugar and good for weight loss, and it's also a good source of energy, thus a perfect food. Do you agree or not? Now, it's true. For example, that they'll promote it that it's good for healthy cholesterol levels, and yes, it does contain fiber, but it's definitely not necessarily good for blood sugar levels. I wouldn't say it's good. However, it is better than most carbohydrates or grains for blood sugar levels, and I'll tell you why and how in a minute. Now, I personally used to have oats all the time, oatmeal, but I used to actually, what I would do instead of putting milk, I would make a protein shake, and it was like a chocolate protein shake. And again, it was just chocolate flavored, whey isolate protein, and I would pour that into the oats that I would make. So it was like a super high powered, protein, and mixed with the oats. And so that invariably can be okay to eat, but having it only by itself isn't good. And I'll tell you why in a minute. Now, the other thing is I used to also make protein cookies, and it contained oats. But again, it was a blend and how I did it and why I did it. And it tasted good, had lots of good fiber and protein and carbohydrates. But again, it's how you do it, when you do it, and the kind you do it. So first of all, let's talk about the benefits. Yeah, oats are grains. So, some people are afraid of them, but there's nothing wrong with them, and they're probably better than most grains. And they do have some vitamins and minerals. Another thing is they contain soluble fiber and beta glucan. So it's good, again, for just, pushing stuff out and keeping you regular, which is important for most people, especially since most people don't consume enough fiber. Earlier, I did say how it's not necessarily good for blood sugar levels. It doesn't lower blood sugar levels. It will slowly increase them, as do most carbohydrates. However, it has a good glycemic load. That means it doesn't necessarily increase your blood sugar, certainly not as much as, say, white bread, or definitely way better than most cereals that most of the people have. So definitely, if I'm going to pick a quote unquote breakfast type food, oats are definitely better than cereals and so forth. Now, the next question is, what's the best type of oats? Steel cut oats are probably the best, mainly because of the way they're minimally processed. So what happens is there's more fiber, and it doesn't increase blood sugar levels nearly as much as the other oats, and certainly much better than other carbohydrates and other forms of carbohydrates. So now the next question is, what are the best times to eat oats? Now, most people, again, have it for breakfast. Unfortunately, they just have big oatmeal. Maybe they'll put some butter in there. They'll put some sugar. This just gentleman said he had it with bananas and so forth. Maybe you do some blueberries, and it's all good. But unfortunately, oats contain tryptophan, which is an amino acid that actually helps. Also, it's a precursor to serotonin. Basically, that amino acid helps your body to relax and mellow out. Now, if you just took a tryptophan pill, like which I used to do at times and still do, I take it at night because it helps, again, me relax and increase my ability to fall asleep. Also, oats do contain melatonin, again, in small amounts, but melatonin is that quote unquote sleep hormone. So my point is, the worst time you want to have oats is in the morning because of these factors, especially if you're going to eat oats all by itself and don't mix another protein in there. And mainly because if you mix protein in there, it contains all these other amino acids. So tryptophan is an amino acid. However, if you have other proteins and so forth, they kind of fight with each other. And so you're not going to get that huge tryptophan spike as you would if you just took like a 500 milligram tryptophan pill at night, maybe half an hour before sleep. As far as the tryptophan, it's more highly concentrated in oats than other carbohydrates. Typically, tryptophan is found in chicken and turkey. So, they say turkeys and tryptophan. Now, again, the tryptophan in turkey, it is higher than other meats, but it also has all these other amino acids that they tend to compete with each other, so it doesn't really hit you as hard as when you just have it with oats or tryptophan only by itself. So the question is, when is the best time to have oats? I suggest later in the evening, maybe even an hour or two before bed. If you wanted to eat that later in the day, I still eat almost an hour before bed. So why? Because then the carbohydrates in there mixed with the higher amounts of tryptophan, and it's slower burning because of the fiber, will help you, in theory, at least better suited for sleep later on at night than say first thing in the morning when you were ready to go. Additionally, people, like I said, when they have oatmeal in the morning, they also mix it with other sugars. They pour sugar in there, they have it with fruit juice and all that stuff. So not only again this huge insulin spike because you're not having oats just by itself, you're also not having any protein. So not only is the sugar going to make you tired, so is the extra tryptophan found in oats and compared to other carbohydrates. Now, what are some of the negatives of oats? Well, they contain lectins and gluten. So even though they say it's gluten-free, it will tend to, cross-contaminate, or also because it contains lectins. For some people, again, if you're sensitive to gluten, I'm not saying everyone is. For example, I'm not, but my mom has it. Forget about it. She can't have oatmeal at all. Now, when she was younger, she could, but not now as she's older because, again, we don't have as good digestibility as we get older. So that's one thing to keep in mind because of the gluten and lectins levels can cause inflammation, cause disruption in your digestion, or maybe gas and bloat and so forth. Now, another problem with most oats is they contain glyphosate, which is basically an herbicide, a pesticide, which is carcinogen. They use it for, you've heard of Roundup. They use it to kill weeds and so forth. And again, it's a carcinogen, and it is found in higher amounts in oats and a lot of things. So you got to keep that in mind. So not only with the gluten and the lectins, plus the glyphosate, it can have definite problems for a lot of people, especially if you're doing it every morning or a big bowl of it, month after month, year after year. So for example, the amount of glyphosate in some have been tested in oats is like 360 parts per million, where the higher amount should be around 150. And some samples, typical ones you buy at the grocery store off the shelf, not the organic ones, they're going to have up to 1,000 parts per million. Again, once in a while it's fine. You do this every day, year after year, it starts to add up. So you should, at least if you're going to have the oats, make sure it's organic, because it's not going to have as much of the gluten. Try to get gluten-free, even though it's going to have lectins. And at the same time, it's going to hopefully have none of the pesticides in there. Let's talk about in summary, basically what we learned. Oats are, they're good. They're good grain. They have the fiber, good for you. They have the vitamins and so forth. They're better as far as glucose and tolerance and insulin blood sugar levels than most of carbohydrates. Now, the healthiest forms are the organic steel-cut oats. So make sure, again, they're organic and steel-cut oats. Because of the extra tryptophan and the potential melatonin and all this stuff, I suggest, you have the oats more later in the evening before bed to help you sleep better rather than the morning, especially if you're going to add in all this, carbohydrates, sugars, and fruit juice and all, like a banana and all that stuff. Maybe blueberries is fine. And if you're going to have it, best to add it with a protein source. So for example, you might have eggs with them. Or what I used to do, again, make that little protein shake. I'd have like 40 grams of protein, and then it was chocolate covered protein powder, and I used to mix it in there. So instead of using milk on there, I used a protein powder. So it's like, I'm having oats with 40 grams of protein in there. So it's like an all-in-one complete meal. And lastly, I suggest you stay away from that pre-packaged stuff, that comes everything in there, because it does contain all this other extra stuff and the sugars, and it also probably does contain gluten and other additives. So you want to stick to the organic steel-cut oats. Try not to add in any sugars or anything like that. Have it, with other proteins like eggs, or the way I made it with the protein shake. So I hope this was helpful. If it was, leave your questions and comments below, and subscribe if you aren't. As always, wishing you a happy and healthy day.